So welcome everyone. I'm Tino Mantella, President of Technology Association of Georgia. I'm here with Karen Finger with ATP, and we're proud to be presenting, believe it or not, the 10th annual ATP TAG CIO Roundtable. So again, thank you. It's another great crowd and terrific panel. I just want to give a shout out to the panel. Thank you very much. We know how busy your schedules are, and to do this for us, it's greatly appreciated. And all of you as well. So we're going to be brief and get the program started. I do want to thank our sponsors. Here's our titanium sponsors. And they're Alvarez and Marshall, Liaison Technology, Alvarez and Marcel, Liaison Technology, MDSI. Our gold sponsors, Charter Global, Sev1, Third Law Sourcing, and our silver sponsor, the MDI Group. Let's give them all a round of applause. TAG has a number of overall sponsors, so just you have in your program the slides, but thank you for all the support of TAG and ATP. You see here our silver and our gold sponsors, so thank you very much. And one thing I want to do before I turn it over to Karen is on March 20th, how many of you signed up for the Georgia Technology Summit? Yeah, all right, we got a lot of hands up there. If you haven't, we've got a great lineup. We've got one of the top futurists in the world, Ray Kurzweil, who happens to now be the Director of Engineering for Google. We have the CTO of Visa. We also have the founder of the Ethernet, N3Com. And finally, our Hall of Fame winner is Jeff Arnold from WebMD. And we also recognize our top 40 innovative technology companies. So there's flyers out in the front, and hopefully you'll all be there. We're expecting our stretch goal is 1,500 people. So I figure, Karen, if everybody here signs up, we'll hit our goal. So thank you. I'm turning it over to Karen.
Thank you, Tino. Again, we're thrilled to host this 10th annual CIO ATP TAG Roundtable with our friends at TAG. My name's Karen Finger. I'm the current president of ATP. We are all volunteers, so I do this in my spare time. In my day job, I'm with CenturyLink Business. Shout out to CenturyLink over there. CenturyLink Business is a global communications, cloud, and IT services company. I have a question for Bryson, though. I'm going to already kick it off. So I'm going to put Bryson on the spot. Bryson Kohler with the weather check. Can you not do something about the weather?
We can only do it in one location at a time, so you're going to have to pick what location you want.
All right. We'll get with you in advance next time. So we have people tonight from ATP and TAG that signed up. If you're not familiar with ATP, we are focused on communication services. And we're all about just great networking, connecting people, business advancement, industry education like we're doing tonight, and then recognition of achievement and innovation that's coming out of Georgia. And we do that through our big ATP Awards Gala each November. I also want to thank our ATP sponsors and TAG sponsors as well for tonight. Please, I'm not going to run through the list. They're in the program. If you guys are looking for business partners to do business with, take a look at the folks in our program. These are the companies that are supporting the Atlanta business community, and we appreciate their generosity. There's a few volunteers I want to recognize that helped put this together. Heather Luttrell with Comcast Business. She helped co-chair this event tonight. If she's out there, there she is, Comcast. Thank you, Heather. Michelle Pierce, who is with AdCom Solutions and is our current vice president of ATP, as well as our enterprise initiatives for ATP. And she's in the back, I think, somewhere. Thank you, Michelle. Amanda Henley, who with TAG, who really kept everything organized and everybody straight. Thank you, Amanda. And Gary Humphrey, who is on our board of directors and runs our sponsorship group. Gary's with Process. So thank you to our volunteers. Again, these people donate their time outside of their day job. Few announcements, and then I'm going to introduce our moderator, Jay Farrow, and turn it over to Jay. We have three big things coming up. April 16th, is going to be a pretty interesting event along with Tag Mobility, the new Tag Mobility Society, actually. And it's being hosted by the CEO of AirWatch, which, as you guys have all read in the press about AirWatch, they're big, one of the highest growing companies in Atlanta right now in the technology space. So John is going to host it at his facility. It's going to be focused on mobile device management, BYOD, with the healthcare, retail, and financial services space. Then we've got our big ATP golf event, which is one of our marquee events, which is May 16th. Those foursomes go fast. If you're interested in golfing, please check out our website. And then a new member breakfast. If you're interested in getting involved in ATP, the best way to do that is to come to a new member breakfast. That's going to be hosted March 26th by QTS. So thank you, QTS. You're out there somewhere, I know. And they're going to also give a tour of their data center. And then I also want to thank our CIO panelists for being here. So I'm going to introduce Jay, who probably really needs no introduction. Jay donates his time generously to the Atlanta community. He's currently CIO for the American Cancer Society, which is a nationwide community-based voluntary health organization dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem. Jay continues to be a thought leader in the information technology arena and is a frequent guest speaker and panelist both in Atlanta and nationwide. In recognition of Jay's accomplishment, he was selected as the Georgia CIO of the Year in 2011 and is currently serving as vice chair for the Georgia CIO Leadership Association. Everybody, please welcome Jay.
Last year when I was on the panel, apparently I talked way too much, so I got demoted to moderator. So I'm just going to go ahead and shut up and ask questions and let these people who are far smarter than I am talk about it a little bit. We'll keep this casual. We'll go through a few questions, toss them a few softballs, and really get into a debate. I don't want to do any of this, 1, 2, 3, 4 nonsense. So we'll keep it casual, but then I'd like to open it up to you guys and make sure that you get asked some of the questions that you have for our distinguished panel.
Okay, I'm Helen Berg. I'm the CIO of iHealth Technologies. iHealth Technologies, for those of you who don't know who we are, we serve the medical payers, so that would be the large insurance companies, medical insurance companies. As a CIO, I'm responsible for what we call product development. It's really more solution development, since we don't ship products to clients, but we provide services and solutions to them, along with the more typical things you would expect, like the management of the infrastructure and things like compliance and security. My background is, it's always been in technology. I've been in technology about 30 years, different industries. For 10 years, I was with Lockheed Martin, worked on the F-22 fighter, also worked for Intercontinental Hotels Group, ISS that was acquired by IBM, Hitachi, and a few other companies along the way. So I did want to say, and I'm going to kick myself for not saying it first, so I'm going to back up and say it now, but I wanted to thank TAG and ATP for sponsoring this event and for inviting me to be here. It's a real honor to be here. And thanks also to all the sponsors and all of you. A little bit more about my organization. Roughly right now in IT, there's, I'll say give or take, 250 people spread across the globe. Our headquarters is here in Atlanta, and we also have a large contingent in India. So I'll stop there. I probably talked too much. Oh, something interesting,
yep,
or I don't know.
Non-business related.
Yeah, I don't know if it's interesting or not. I used to be a skydiver. I made about 300 jumps. When I was pregnant, I quit skydiving and learned to fly. So.
Well, Bill, pressure's on, brother.
That's it for me.
It's all downhill from here.
That's going to be hard to top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening. Thanks for turning out. The Atlanta IT ecosystem is very strong, standing room only. I'm Bill Van Kuren. the CIO at NCR Corporation. I've been located here in Atlanta for 3+ years now. We moved our world headquarters here, announced that in 2009 and took roots in 2010. NCR is a $6.2 billion leader in technology, self-service solutions. Our brand is to make everyday life easier for you, the consumer. We basically sit at the point of the transaction, right, between the consumer and business. So we hold #1 market share in automated teller machines for the financial industry, point of sale systems, self-checkout systems, travel, kiosks. You may have seen our logos in these various areas. We're also very strong in telecom and technology. We provide support and services for telecom OEMs and telco providers through our technology and telecom line of business. So there's it's a very diverse company. Here in Atlanta, we have our corporate staff headquarters located in Duluth. IT alone, we have over 300 jobs, and we brought most of those jobs with us when we relocated from Ohio to Georgia in 2010. 22,000, going on 23,000 employees strong now worldwide. About half of those are outside the U.S. We've recently acquired 2 large companies as we've increased our penetration in the retail market. We acquired Radiant Technologies, formerly based in Alpharetta, in Q3 of 2010. And last month we announced the acquisition of Retalix in Tel Aviv, Israel. And the acquisition of both those companies adds #1 market share in convenience, quick service retail, as well as grocery and general merchandise. So we're back into retail in a big way, and we should be. We invented retail 130 years ago. We invented the cash register. We invented the direct sales model.
Internet too?
We did not invent, that was Al Gore, wasn't it? We're going to talk about that.
Al Gore invented the internet.
So
Yeah, that's number 3.
The interesting thing you should know about me is I actually, my aspirations were to be a farmer. I actually had no aspirations to be in business or be sitting behind a desk in an air-conditioned office. I wanted to be a farmer. I had respiratory allergies, and I was allergic to cattle and horses. So I couldn't do crops, and I couldn't do livestock, so I went to college to learn computer science.
My name is Matt Beal. I serve as Chief Technology Officer and Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy for CenturyLink out of Monroe, Louisiana. We are a 50,000 person strong global telecommunications and hosting co-location provider. We've grown significantly over the last couple of years, largely through acquisition, most notably, I guess most recently rather than most notably, with the acquisitions of Savvis, Quest, and Embark, the Sprint local business. So a lot of activity as we've learned to, it's a challenge when you're acquiring companies multiple times your size. When you do it serially, it's all the more interesting. So we operate 55 data centers around the world, as well as have local incumbent telephony operations, broadband operations in 37 states across the United States. So a lot of scale, a lot of diversity, and a lot of complexity. Our IT business is probably, depending on how much of our business you count as IT, is probably a group of about 3,500 strong, with about 1,700 of those in India. So pretty significant. A lot of our IT group is focused on go-to-market. A lot is as well focused on consolidation of all of the operating entities that we own. Point of note, I don't know you well enough to make quite as deep personal commentary on myself, but I will say that I probably am nearly qualified already this year for Georgia residency because of the multiple layovers in Atlanta. So,
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, great. Hello, Bryson Kaler. I'm the CIO of The Weather Company. The Weather Company is the parent company for The Weather Channel. I'm sure you all know and love The Weather Channel, except for days like today where we get blamed for the weather. Twice since we've started the event.
Yeah.
And I am counting. So The Weather Company, our goal is really to provide the world's most accurate and dependable weather information. And we pride ourselves in providing the world's most accurate forecasts. And The Weather Channel is one of our distribution outlets. We also have top 15 website and top 5 mobile applications across weather.com, Weather Underground, and Telecast, and a suite of digital properties. We also provide weather forecasting through a B2B division that we have where we provide weather forecasting for most of the U.S. airlines, where we have embedded teams of meteorologists and systems to provide real-time flight ops and real-time in-flight weather forecasting all the way down to turbulence forecasts. And then an international group where we provide weather forecasting capabilities to countries around the world. So some countries, for example, Mexico, where they outsource their national weather service, and we step in and help out. So really our job is to figure out how we continue to take in more data, turn that data into the world's most accurate forecasts, and distribute it most efficiently across any of our outlets anywhere in the world. And it's a lot of fun. We're going through a lot of change, and I think what you'll see from us over the coming years is a tremendous amount of change that I think will continue to build on what we already see here tonight, which is just a fantastic Atlanta technology community. I think when you travel around, if you've lived in other places, I mean, the community that we have here in Atlanta from a technology perspective is just really great. And I don't think any, location, maybe outside of the exception of the Bay Area, has such a great group of technology folks that get together and help each other and build such a strong community. So I just think it's great that we can do that, and applaud all of us for being here.
Is it true that they're renaming Doppler radar to Bryson Kaler radar?
Yeah.
Is that true? No.
That's not true.
That's not true. This is a vicious rumor.
Truthometer went in
The
your
truthometer
Yeah.
just fell off. A couple of housekeeping items. First of all, the Atlanta community, I think, is one of the best in the world. I mean, I think all of us have been in a lot of other communities. Having been in New York, London, and many other communities, I can tell you that you will not find a more collegial group than the Atlanta IT community, both on the supplier side, on the staff side, everything. It's just a very unique environment, and I hope everyone here realizes how special that is. For those of you who have worked in other cities, you know what I'm talking about. Like I said, a little bit about the American Cancer Society real quick, and then we're going to dive right in. I think we all know what the American Cancer Society does. You've at least heard of us. We're the largest community-based healthcare nonprofit in the world. You may know us through Relay for Life, Strides Against Breast Cancer, many other things. We're the largest funder, non-governmental funder of cancer research in the world. We have 12 divisions, a little over 900 locations worldwide, and over 3.5 million volunteers that really are the secret sauce of the American Cancer Society. So this is our 100th year. We're very excited about this being our 100th anniversary, and we hope it's cancer's last century. We were actively trying to put ourselves out of a job, and I hope that at one of these future events, I have another company name by my name, because that means that, that we did our job right. And we've eliminated cancer as a world health problem. Okay, the other housekeeping item that we have is that, just to make this a little more interesting, anytime somebody says cloud, mobility, or big data, you guys take a drink.
You guys.
You guys take a break.
You guys.
Not these guys.
We
you
don't
guys.
have any.
We got water.
Yeah.
And the over-under on all of you passing out is about 7 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be. I'm kidding. I love all those technologies. CIO Magazine, Gartner, and other publications have highlighted the total technology spending by the CMO will exceed that spent by the CIO in the next several years. How does that resonate with you guys? Is that true for your organization? How do you work with your CMO? What's that relationship look like? And how do you see that changing down the road? Who wants to dive right in? Helen?
I'm probably going to have the contrary view, so maybe we'll let one of them go first.
No, please.
and then I'll come back. But yeah, I'll go second. We'll let someone else.
Matt,
I get to go first? Fantastic. The stranger goes.
break the ice, man.
Absolutely. No, so I think for our organization, we probably don't see it as that extreme, but I do think that it's increasingly the case that the CIO struggles to be able to keep current with a number of things. We've got a large challenge within our organization of just chasing down what we call our business-owned applications. And as corporate data and as personal data, and especially as usage data becomes more and more prevalent in both our decision-making, our marketing, as well as in our products and services, it's absolutely the case that the tools that are emerging in the, if you will, the public data space are so rich that it's almost easier. So I don't know if the total spend is actually going to exceed it as Gartner predicts, but certainly the dynamic nature of it probably speeds ahead of what our CIO organization keeps up with. And so we're finding we're actually having to adopt a lot of those solutions and expedite them in-house so we can keep the relationship that we've got in terms of all of our data together in a cohesive fashion.
Very good, very good. Helen, you said you had a contrary view.
Yeah, and contrary may be a little bit strong, but the way that we run the business at iHealth Technologies, it might be a little bit different, and we're a different size company, so realize that's probably part of it as well. But I think for us, it's more about how the decision is made, not who's carrying the budget.
Right.
We really don't have departmental budgets per se. We have a technology budget that I oversee, but for us, it's really about what's the decision process that we used in order to make that decision. And if it's something the CMO, we don't have a CMO, by the way, but if it's something the CMO needs to make, or anyone else, CFO, fill in the blank, we strive to make sure that the appropriate people are involved in that decision process. Now, one thing that drives is a huge amount of collaboration. And I think just as I think about the bigger context with some of the bigger companies, I think that's probably the nature of the problem is whoever carries the budget is going to be a collaboration effort. And that's going to, I think, increase more and more and more as these technologies, that we're seeing now that we're in the consumer space, starting to make their way inside the enterprise space. And it's really going to change the way we think about delivering enterprise IT. But, again, for us, it's what's the quality of your decision? Who did you involve? Did you get consensus? How did you do the collaboration? And we have a saying that we say a lot, it's play your position. So if you're the CIO, play your position. You should weigh in on technology decisions. You may actually have the final say-so, but you're counting on your other team players and other executives in the company to play their position too and weigh in on the decisions they should make. So we just have a little bit different way of doing things, but it works.
It's a team game, isn't it?
Works for us, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Success is a team game. You mentioned collaboration, and certainly even if the view is a little bit different than what Matt had, tell us about your role, and this is really aimed at the group, in providing measurement metrics and analytics to marketing and other areas of the company. But let's start off with marketing. I mean, certainly CMOs, heads of marketing want to know how what the market penetration is, how successful their campaigns have been, that kind of thing. Tell me a little bit about IT's role there.
I mean, I'll take that one. It's, for us, there's two sides to it, right? There's the internal side. What are we doing? We've got the second most distributed cable network in the U.S., right? And one of the top most daily visited websites, right? So how are the campaigns doing? We need all of those raw data. But I think the most interesting part for us is how do we help other companies understand the intersection of weather and their consumer or their customer's behavior. And that's really where the analytics start to become very interesting because, just think how many people here today were impacted by weather, right? And how many events that were related to you spending money were impacted by weather, right? Whether that delayed something that you were going to purchase or do, it altered a route that you were going to take. There was some impact related to something you were going to do related to weather. So helping other companies and helping other CMOs and marketing executives understand the impact that weather's having on their customers is really the main role that we play, which makes it even more exciting.
Very cool.
I would add to that, Jay. I think one of the roles of the CIO is to help the company work across boundaries. So left in isolation, the marketing department might go, implement a lead management tool in isolation. The sales team probably has a good opportunity management or a quoting pricing tool. And then you have business operations that are booking orders and fulfilling orders. And I think one of the things that we try to do at NCR is to see things across boundaries. And so where I come to the table to help is to to make sure that we can measure, did the actual lead become an opportunity or a quote that ultimately fulfilled an order? Can I stitch that together in terms of the data and the analytics to measure success end to end?
I think I'll add on to that because what I was going to say was kind of complementary. Everything we do, we're an analytics company, so everything we do kind of has a foundation in that. But we always measure it, no matter who we are, which department it was, on the value that the customer got out of it. And it's something we watch very closely because most of our revenue stream is on a contingency base, so the customer doesn't pay us unless they get value out of what we're delivering to them. So it's obviously very important to us and something that we keep a very strict eye on, that all the analytics work that we are doing did generate value, or else we didn't get paid.
Well, getting paid is a good thing. It's always a good thing. First of all, Bryson, you're saying that weather impacts us in Atlanta. Rain impacts our commute, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deep insight. Are there any stories? I'm kidding.
Well, I couldn't use big data because then we would have people drinking.
Everybody
Oh, he
drinking.
said it. He
Voice
said
one.
it. Yeah, he said it.
No, in all seriousness, are there you knew the Alvarez and Marcel table was going to drink, didn't you? Are there any interesting correlations that you've found that maybe you can share with us that people might not inherently think?
I mean, I think for all of us, just at a broad level, when we look at how do we raise the value of what IT is providing to our companies, it is around those insights. All of us are faced, for the most part, with commoditization. Right? A weather forecast is, in the eyes of the general public, a decently commoditized service, unless you understand that there's a significant swing in accuracy based upon where you get your weather data. The same I would say, Matt would say related to, your hosting or your connectivity. There are things that differentiate all of us, but you have to have the insights to be able to explain that story. So, if you just take a simple example of soup, there's a large soup manufacturer that needed to understand, what was the trigger point for when people actually consumed more soup. And it turns out that if you crunch all of the numbers of soup sales on a store-by-store basis around the country, there is a trigger point of temperature where soup sales dramatically rise. So if you begin to understand that, and you start to say, well, why are we then running ads and running sales and running stuff when we haven't yet hit that trigger point, or yet we've dropped below it and we know it's going to happen anyway? We just inherently all would say, yes, you would sell more soup when it gets cold. But I guess the question would be, do we know exactly how cold? And once you're able to kind of correlate those things, then you're able to actually start making business decisions, which for us helps other companies spend their money more wisely. And when they get a better return on spending their money with us from an advertising perspective, and we're able to help them demonstrate that allows us to command a premium price in the market.
That's fascinating stuff. Getting away from just marketing, but still focusing on data a little bit, I imagine all four of your organizations, and certainly it's true with the American Cancer side, deal with a significant volume of data, or perhaps large data.
You mean big data?
Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to...
We all have this challenge. What are some of the obstacles or the bottlenecks that you're running into in your organizations, from organizing it, cleansing it, discovering its value? Are there some lessons learned or some challenges that you're running into these days that you can share with us?
Well, for me, it's about building kind of a strong, what I'll call a middle tier. Mm-hmm. We try to implement things like an information catalog with strong metadata and data quality, and really, I guess, try to abstract it up to a layer that's usable and that can be used to drive value for a solution or for a service. Because if you try to work on it at a low level, then yes, there's too much and there's a lot, and actually the way it's represented at a physical layer may not be at all the way that you're dealing with it at a user layer. So for us, it's all about how do we get the best kind of middle tier in there that allows us to abstract it out and then provide those tools that the end user community can work with.
We've taken that problem on as well, Jay. I think you know the story here a bit better than others because you and I were on a panel a while back, but I think 2 years ago I was very frustrated in our company that we weren't making progress with data management. And we did a lot of research and we concluded that really the problem was not IT related, that we needed more business ownership. So we established a data governance council. We took that proposal to the CEO and he would not allow us to delegate the data stewardship 2 levels below. So we have a leadership council, top 50 leaders in the company. We selected within those top 50 the data stewards, key data subjects like product, customer, contract, and so on. 2 years later, in fact, I was in my CFO's office this morning, and he asked me, Bill, how would you say the success has been of the Master Data Management Program? And I said, boss, by the way, his name is Bob. Bob, it's successful today because the last council meeting, the business led the discussion. So I had a top person from legal describing how she was managing contract data, metadata. I had the director in supply chain operations describing how they were managing product data, and I had a director, VP level in the business operations center talking about how she now owns customer. So it's all about enabling the business through all the tools you mentioned, Brenda, and letting the business lead that governance to really get the strong data.
How did you get them familiar and comfortable with the notion of data stewardship? Because that's always a big challenge.
They have to see the value. They have to see the value in the fact that the accuracy of the reporting is going to be better.
Yeah.
The invoice accuracy is going to be better in that example, which improves cash flow.
Right.
So it always comes back to the business numbers that are going to generate from that. If the products are clean, then we're going to have better lead times and less out of stock and so on.
So you proved it to them. Yeah.
Well, I'd say they proved it to themselves.
They proved it to
right?
themselves.
It took us a while to get there, but it's a long journey.
Matt?
Yeah, we had a similar need when we were bringing a couple of our companies together in that actually it was more about getting on the ground facts to be able to say, so in fact, what is the data that one company had represented in one way? How does that meld with the data from another company such that we can actually integrate from a data perspective the inventories and so forth? So we actually went very, very deep because we weren't getting clarity. We kept seeing it again and again in our analysis. And actually how we got our teams comfortable with the notion of that integrity of data and those models was actually in the customer outcomes. Because when you start interacting with your field engineers and your field operations techs, really almost the only common bond is not even revenue. It's really just that customer experience and acknowledging when we do our conversions to bring these companies together under common data management, you literally break lifeline services, you break broadband services, you dump the customer. And that was something that it didn't take rocket science for people to get a hold of.
And so it's taken off pretty well?
It's hard work.
Yeah.
Especially when you're cleaning up really what feels like eons of sedimentary data. Getting all of that clean when it's coming from so many different corporate histories, that's been our challenge, is just getting that to the point where actually you can move forward and make sense of it as one company.
Now, Bryson, I know just based on your business and being familiar with the Weather Channel, you deal with a significant amount.
Yeah, we
data.
ingest about 20 terabytes a day of data. And being a capitalist, I've tried to kind of start with figuring out what's the value of our data, right? And so that's really been the hardest challenge, which is what is it worth? What's the value of a forecast for Atlanta at 2 p.m. for that hour versus what's the value of that forecast in 5-minute increments?
Does it matter if the forecast is right?
So that's another
Might have a
question,
higher
right?
value
No, it's
if-
fair, right? Because there are, if the National Weather Service, and these are publicly available, data, but if the National Weather Service is accurate at, say, 65%, and we're accurate at, say, 80 some odd percent, there's a difference in that, equation. And there's also different variables even within our own forecast. But when you're in the business of distributing the data, you have to figure out how you assign a value to what that data is worth, both in the marketplace and what does it cost to create it, store it, and house it, distribute it. And our biggest challenge is figuring out, okay, if you've got a forecast down at an hourly basis and then you've got one at a 5-minute increment, how do you know how to assign what the value of that is? And it goes back to people have to understand how they would use it and make use of it. because sometimes data is a little bit too granular to make use of. So I've been struggling trying to figure that out.
Do you think, I mean, how do you anticipate that you'll end up changing that behavior? I mean, I think a lot of companies have a knee-jerk reaction, and ACS is no different, that we want everything. Just give us everything, but we have no idea what we want. We have no idea what the value is.
Yep.
But darn it, I'm going to throw it into a spreadsheet, and I'm going to pivot table the living you-know-what out of it. And never mind that it's, not based on anything or it's unstructured, whatever. I'm going to draw a conclusion.
It's interesting because, and there's two sides to that. There's the, what you're revealing out to the general public, right? Somebody who's just a general person trying to make a decision versus what you would sell to, say, a business analyst inside of another company. One of the most interesting things, for me in my time so far has been, the understanding that there's a probability of accuracy even on the probability of a forecast. So we're 30% sure that there's a 70% chance of rain. Right? Now, we don't necessarily always say that. But to Helen's point, and it's fair, there's a certain art in the forecasting. But if you're a true, analytics guru or a business analyst, from a math perspective, taking that kind of data into your business, systems, knowing that there's a 30% accuracy on that number, on that data that you ingested, helps you know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Right? What kind of value do I assign to something that is 30% accuracy? And so, go ahead, Matt.
No, I think sometimes we forget as well that certain data has a temporal factor
Right.
that really drives value. So
Right.
as an example, if you know that forecast 1 minute before it starts to rain, how valuable is that compared to knowing a day before?
Right.
Yeah.
Versus 2 minutes after it started to rain, it becomes, yes, thank you, I know that.
You got a window, open it.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
As we talk to a lot of our customers, as they start to think about what do they put into the data center, what do they put into long-term storage, and really trying to figure out, so what's going to have enduring value versus what is something that you just need to cache for an hour or a day or whatever. And that aspect of data management is something that sometimes we pay too little attention to, especially when managing total ROI, total cost, and total benefit.
What I've seen come about, and we had a pact before we got up here that we weren't going to say the C word.
Go ahead, man.
Begins with a C.
They're all drunk, by the way.
Begins with a C, ends in a D, and rhymes with loud.
And has nothing to do with
Cumulonimbus.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nothing to do with weather, right?
The advent of that C word, there's a level of naivety in our user community, right? That they still expect to just, hey, can I just have that data?
Yeah.
And that data they want is now out in somebody else's cloud. I don't have the data structure as I did in the old days, right? I don't know the schema. I don't know how to extract this data, and they certainly don't have the patience or the time to walk through, me mapping this to an EDI or something. So the expectation that's brought about by that is for us technology professionals is to still be able to deliver the information just as we did before the advent of the C word. And that's put a real strain, and it's a whole new market is emerging around that, the B word, big data.
Yeah.
You guys can drink now.
I was going to make one more comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just on the temporal thing and around data management. I wasn't going to say the C word at all.
We can say it.
It's okay. And I think it is a challenge. I know for one of the things that I deal with is, one of the things we do is we look at claim data and we analyze it, but sometimes we only see that claim for less than 2 seconds. So, the way that we store data and manage it, and being able to run our algorithms against the B word, and which may involve, 1,000 or 10,000 dimensions, just depends.
Right.
And be able to produce a result of that analysis in under a couple seconds. It is a concern. I think that some people are, if you're not a CIO, if you're not in that world, you may not really think about the whole data management aspect like that.
Bill, you mentioned something about expectations from our customers, our employees, and certainly the advent of cloud, the advent of consumerization. Everybody has a home Wi-Fi network, and they think, I brought my iPad up in 10 minutes, it should just be that easy. there's a paradox for CIOs, CTOs, and senior IT leaders, where suddenly you're expected to be the chief innovation officer, but you're also expected to really optimize, run, and maintain the legacy systems as well. How do you strike that balance in your organizations and walk in both worlds? And, you know, what is your role in the place of innovation in your organization?
I'll go first. I think it's situational leadership.
Yeah.
I think you walk from one meeting to the next or one forum to the next, and you really have to adapt your style to the group's ability to absorb.
Yeah.
There are some groups that are hungry for you to be the innovator, and you give them capital, give them more devices, you give them more bandwidth. There's other groups you're going to walk into, and they want the compliant CIO. They want the controls and the change management, right, and that type of thing. So it's very situational. Devices, there's no question. I think the average business user today has 2.3 devices, right? So when I walk in a conference room today and I go around and I count, half the people have got their laptop fired up, another half of them have iPads, and then everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket. I think one of the think tanks said by next year the average will be like 3.5 devices per corporate employee. And so, right, that's really what's driving the explosion. And so there's going to be a real settling effect, I think,
right,
when we run out of bandwidth to support all these devices, because very quickly they're all going to be running full motion video and other things. And we can kind of see where this is going, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the answer, it depends, is spot on. I think there are certain areas where we're proactively making the decision. The trend is clear. We literally have to give the future to our customers now and give them the opportunity to step straight there. There are certain other things, though. So as an example, our voice network, 3,800 switch offices across the country. If we did one per operating region per week, which is an enormous logistical challenge, to move the 40 million access lines that are home to those, shutting down half of them because that's what line loss has done to us, that would actually take us 4.5 years of raw execution without flaw. So sometimes the nature of the task requires that you've actually got to think fundamentally differently about how you deal with the legacy than other areas where, you know what, it's time to make the cut change and you actually don't have time to do a migration. You have to allow the customers that are ready to go there and go.
And I agree with both of you. I think even at the American Cancer Society, we have the same thing. We have to engage our consumers, our constituents, our employees, how they need to be engaged. I mean, some days you're the compliance CIO. I think that's absolutely spot on. The profile of our donor, our volunteer, our constituent is still all over the map. I mean, we still have the folks who manually write a check and make a donation. Our younger volunteers, and we have millions of them that are very, very active, want to be engaged at a different level. You know, they want apps to simply work. You know, they want near-field communication. They want, our newer employees want instant access to data. Why am I having to VPN in? Why am I having to lug around this 6-pound laptop in order to just get in? Why can't I just have that delivered to me so I can get out there and get to the core of what we're trying to do as an organization, which of course is, reach into our communities and end cancer as a world health problem. So we struggle with that as well, but I absolutely agree with you. I want to be, go ahead, Helen, please. No. I always have time for you.
Thank you, Jay. I just, I think I'm adding on, but, I consider one of my roles is to help fund innovation. We're all about how to differentiate ourselves in the market. We're always trying to grow. And I'm always looking for ways to take money out, if I can, of anything that we have, what we'll call the legacy world, whatever that is. You have to be careful how you label that because a lot of legacy stuff is real mission critical. So, you can't you have to be careful of risk. But I'm always really thinking of my other hat, which is how do I fund innovation? How do I do things more optimally so I can push more money over there?
Are you taking a self-funding approach, whereas you minimize the operating cost of the legacy run and maintain, you can redeploy those dollars into more innovative technologies?
Yeah, I am, and I'm really seeing more of that impact outside of IT because of I'll just say applications or things like that we provide are really driving efficiency through the other business units.
Right.
So that's generating a huge amount of kind of ability to redeploy those resources.
You get a microphone coming your way.
I can probably
Yep.
loud enough.
Yep.
Matt?
Yes.
How do you determine which direction to try and drive your network service offering?
So simply put, we try to follow based on one, just bandwidth growth overall. The trend is staggering, actually. Two, our customers are pretty good indicators. And three, it all comes down to, we believe in the end, there's an outcome where, whether it's, the dreaded C word of the cloud makes everything video. But there comes a density that says almost everything moves to video, almost everything moves to a lot of the consumerized type technologies and so forth. So we try to align that, and we try to focus a lot on multi-service so that telecoms was built under a notion of every single product gets its own network. That's the hardest thing to scale. So it's really all about scaling now to the aggregate and scaling to the extreme customer. Gives you a prayer for landing far enough forward that you're actually not behind by the time that you get it built.
Yeah, hi. Evernote announced today that they're resetting 50 million passwords because they were hacked. You talked about the number of devices, you talked about collaboration. How concerned are you with the proliferation of consumer-grade collaboration tools within your corporate environment, and how do you intend to address that going forward?
I would say that, it's a real problem, right? But it's got to come down to, technology is not going to solve it as much as helping our employees and our colleagues understand the risks and understand what they can do about them. Leaving something in your car that is easily, you wouldn't leave jewelry sitting out on your dashboard. You just kind of know intuitively that that's not a good idea. I should probably put that in the glove box. And so we have to help people understand that, LinkedIn, Dropbox, what have you, they're the same sorts of things, and you need to protect them and take the right measures to help protect corporate assets. Because unless you're in a really heavily regulated environment, you're not going to be able to just lock everything down and stifle innovation and just say nobody can access anything. You're going to have to work collaboratively with your employee base to help mitigate the risks together.
Yeah, very interesting discussion about data management and its value. There's another technology coming along, which is not part one of those that you said, which is machine-to-machine, M2M, which is going to spew out a lot more data. And my question to the CIOs particularly is, does that make the job easier or harder?
More fun.
More fun.
More fun.
We've got, I'll just take weather. We've got 60,000 personal weather stations spread out across the United States where we collect up to every 3 seconds weather data. That weather data feeds in and makes the weather forecasts up to 5% more accurate. Is it a pain to collect all that information? Yes. Will machine to machine make that easier? It will. And at the end of the day, it makes our job more fun because there's more for us to do with the data that's coming in.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably some of each. It might be easier from the standpoint of, it's probably valuable information and we're going to use that in some way. So that will ultimately make what we're doing easier, hopefully. But my worry, we can be honest here.
Yeah, just us friends.
How do you back all this up? Or do you? Do you even care?
Yeah.
After a while, it's so much. I think you have to start making those kind of almost tiering decisions like we do around storage, I guess.
Right.
More in the data management side. That's just something sitting out here in my mind is, that's a huge amount of stuff to manage.
I think probably the biggest thing about MDM that I think we have to think through is when it's user-induced, it has a set of behaviors because users actually have certain trends and so forth. When it's machine-induced, it becomes chattier, it becomes less predictable, and also when something goes wrong or something unexpected happens, it's really hard to predict how that set of, if you will, new users on the networks are going to behave and how your data centers and so forth cope. So I think it's that aspect of it as well that, yes, it absolutely makes it a lot more complex. And it'll be a lot of fun to figure out exactly how we cope with it when the users are no longer predominantly humans. but they're predominantly machines.
You're having to support more and more people internally and customers. How do you manage costs?
Well, I mean, speaking for the American Cancer Society, I mean, we got to reduce redundancy. You know, reduce duplicative technologies, get down to one core set. Historically, we were 57 divisions with 57 different operating models, all loosely affiliated, but more of a franchise model. Well, you end up with, you know, a lot of different disparate technologies, generally trying to do the same thing, but all doing it with slight variations, with the ability to kind of go out and do their own thing. Obviously, there's huge inefficiencies there. Now that we're one global United American Cancer Society, I mean, the opportunities are just sitting there for us. And so you got to drive out redundancy, you got to standardize, automate what you can, and minimize that operating burden so that you can redeploy those dollars into innovative and value-added things. I mean, the commodity technologies, whether, you know, and I'll violate my own rule, but whether it's, you know, working with a great partner and putting things in the cloud, but, you know, is there a great value with me owning email from end to end? You know, I don't know that there's a terrific value add for me doing that. If somebody can do it better, faster, cheaper than I can, I have to, as CIO, look at those opportunities. Because I'm working, I mean, whether you're a publicly held organization, you're working with shareholder value, or a private, you know, a nonprofit, we're working with donor dollars. I owe it to them, the folks who are investing in the American Cancer Society, to make the best use of those dollars. So, you know, we want to minimize that operating cost. Doesn't mean doing things on the cheap, because you're going to pay for that in the long run. It means doing it the right way.
Putting a bullet in old systems. You know, I mean,
Yeah, you got to sunset them, don't you?
You've got to
Yeah.
sunset.
Was this question, how do you manage cost?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you do it along a lot of dimensions.
Yep.
When you run a big enterprise, there's probably 30 or 40 dimensions that we measure costs against. So it's very quantitative for us. It's almost a science.
Yep.
And we look for a lot of external benchmarks, not just one. So you can normalize real quick. You know, if you're a manufacturing company, what do you spend on IT as a percent of revenue versus a financial company versus an internet company? You can get good normalized benchmarks on what the IT spend is per employee. By the way, what do you think that is on average? What do you think companies spend per employee on IT on average, right? It's about $7,000 to $8,000. World class for low cost is $6,000. Companies that spend a lot spend $10,000 to $12,000 per employee. So you can get all kinds of benchmarks. And this stuff tends to triangulate. You tend to be very good at all of them, and maybe
Right.
you're off benchmark on two, or you're off on all of it,
Right.
which says you got a lot of opportunity to take cost out.
You have to factor in your business strategy, right? Are you in growth mode? Are you in, you know, rundown mode? Are you in acquisition mode? Those types of things as well, which adds additional complexity. Right here.
Yes. Hi, Bill, you mentioned a comment about IT compliance. Sometimes you have to be the CIO, goes in and talks about compliance. I want to get your feedback on, with today's regulatory environment, and they're coming to you for auditing, what have you been doing with the servers, who did what, and when? How much of that is being a focus for you, and how do you address that?
That's a great question. I think, you know, if I had to rank what's top of mind for me, or what's really changed in the past 2 years, I'd put information security and compliance in my top three. In manufacturing companies generally don't spend a lot on information security, whereas, you know, financial institution would spend a lot more. So we've doubled our IT security budget for the past 2 years. We've doubled it up. We're probably 1.5% of total IT budget now. So along, you know, the ever-changing landscape of compliancy and privacy, SOX is kind of old news. Most of us have gotten pretty good at SOX and have reduced the number of applications, the number of controls that we actually measure for Sarbanes-Oxley. It's more now around the data privacy and data loss prevention, right? So let's take PCI, for example. If you're in the credit card business, or you're a merchant, or you're storing a credit card, you know what that brings along. There's a lot of inheritance with PCI that drives, you know, a lot of compliancy. In PCI 2, you know, the next wave of that is even more intrusive in terms of investing in your data centers. You've got to have, you know, revolving doors instead of man traps. You've got to have cameras at every hallway, and there's a lot of extra things that come along. So the CIO now is in the space of helping manage real estate, you know, because that's that pervasive. Data privacy laws that extend into the EU as a global company. So you just get into all these things, And it's a wake-up call. You know, if you don't have a CISO on your staff, you will have soon. And you need to do that. You need to have a full, very professional information security staff that stays very current. And I would say my information security staff probably goes to 2 to 3 times the number of conferences that the rest of my group does, because you got to stay current on all the changing regulations.
Especially when you figure in jurisdictional differences.
Right.
As territories are waking up at different levels, we see it on the state level, and the US is simple. Go global, and where the data is, what data you can store, who can look at it, remarkably complex and rapidly changing.
And then Helen and I get the love of HIPAA
Yeah.
when that's thrown in there.
Protected health information. And,
Yeah,
we're up to our eyeballs in
Yep.
privacy and security and all the things that go along with it.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question, then we'll wrap it up. Anybody? One more question?
So we heard about all those tasks that the CIO has to deal with, and just based on what you just said, where is there enough time for leading innovation in the organization? It doesn't sound like you would even have time for that. Do you have any examples of you introducing any new initiatives or any innovative solutions for your organization?
Absolutely. That's what makes the world go round still, right? I mean, so for us, it's been one thing we've been internally focused trying to make sense of how do you merge the world's second largest co-location provider with now the nation's third largest telecommunications provider and move forward. So actually introducing things that are both driven towards expediting cost in terms of rationalizing and simplifying both the network and the systems that ride across it, really going after more aggressive new network technologies. There are some new software integration and network layer integration aspects, software-defined networks and so forth. We're absolutely all in the middle of it. So I think what it comes down to is how do you build your staff? How do you organize your team? How do you delegate such that you actually have an opportunity to lead both the innovation side, but as well the cultural side? Because in fact, innovation is more cultural than process, than technology, than anything else. And creating that oxygen for your teams also gives them the hope to go conquer some of the harder problems that are nothing more than roll up your sleeves, get in, and get it done. So I mean, that's the way that we're undertaking it right now and reminding ourselves, if we don't go there, you know what, we will be out of business soon.
Absolutely.
The average product development person is struggling for, where do I get infrastructure? Where do I get data? How do I build new products? So for us, it's around getting control of our data and exposing it through a rich set of, developer-friendly APIs. And how do we make sure that all of the infrastructure moving forward is controllable through a good set of developer-friendly APIs so that we can put more control into the hands of our product development team and accelerate the pace of innovation. So on the one hand, it's kind of rudimentary stuff, data and infrastructure. But if you do that in the right way, you've quintupled the speed at which a company can innovate and produce new products and get out there.
I thought your question at first was about time management. The more I think about it, I don't have a lot of meetings on my calendar to say this is an innovation. So what we have to do is you have to find the people in your company that are innovating and knock down barriers for them. The CIO next to the head of real estate and the guy that runs all the factories spends the most capital in the company, right? And so when the CIO comes to the board and asks for capital, the CIO usually gets what he or she asks for. We get a lot of capital. So we need to be champions for the innovators in our companies and knock down barriers for them, because you know what? They don't want to meet the compliancy CIO. Innovators don't care to know that the CIO is a blocker or a gatekeeper. So you got to find those innovators wherever they are in your company and knock down barriers for them and give them the capital they need to grow.
In a culture that at least tolerates, or I don't want to say rewards failure, but allows failure, where it allows you to fail forward, fail hopefully cheap and quickly and recover and learn from it. But that's a big cultural leap for many companies to tolerate that and allow that. I want to thank my panel. I hope you enjoyed this. It's been a terrific dialogue. I want to thank all four of my guests tonight, but I also want to thank our sponsors tonight. This would not be possible without you. So thank you very much for making this great evening possible. Can I get a round of applause for the panelists?
It's my pleasure to wrap things up tonight. First, I want to start by thanking our wonderful moderator.
Oh, thanks.
And all of our speakers. I'm Melanie Brandt with TAG, by the way. And again, we really appreciate you guys being here. We love this event. I want to remind you guys to register for the summit because that's also going to be a great event. It's on March 20th. We love our partnership with ATP, and this has just been a lot of fun. So thank you guys all so much for coming.